you have to keep in mind that if we all went vegan, then we would have to replace all these animal food products, okay, this animal nutrition, okay. And what we have to keep in mind is that there's a difference in bioavailability, for example, of vitamins in animal sourced foods or plant-based foods, okay. There's a difference there, okay. Animal foods have better bioavailability than plant-based foods, okay. You can see it in this graph here. The orange color is the animal-based foods and the green color is the plant-based foods. And you can clearly see that in almost every category of vitamin, there is a higher bioavailability in animal-based foods than in plant-based foods. So you have to keep in mind this if you want to talk about a scenario where we replace all the animal-based foods for plant-based foods. So it would mean that we would have to eat more plant-based foods if we want to get the same nutrition that we would otherwise get from animal-based foods, okay? And this is also a conclusion that this study gets to. Nutritional and greenhouse gas impacts of removing animals from US agriculture. And it comes to the conclusion that the food production would increase. Okay, so the crop production would increase if we don't have livestock agriculture in the United States. You can see it in this graph. So there would be more grain produced, for example. Okay, so more crop deaths in a vegan scenario, basically.
So the pie chart on the right is a vegan scenario, and the pie chart on the left is what we've got now.
Yeah, pretty much. And the good thing is they factor in nutrition. So basically, because we are missing all these nutrients in the vegan scenario, we will have to produce more food, and that leads to more crop deaths. And this is what the pie chart on the right side shows.
So that's almost 3 times as much grain crops in a vegan scenario.
Yeah, pretty much.
So 3 times the amount of grain crops equals 3 times the amount of tillage and erosion and petrochemicals and synthetic fertilizers and mined fertilizers and crop deaths, which are already in the quadrillions per year for the crops that produce the items on the vegan menu.
Right. I mean, there are some differences in estimation what exactly would increase. Like there are also studies that show that fruits and vegetables would most likely increase, or wheat, or rice, for example, soybeans. There are all kinds of estimations, but from the data that I've seen that actually takes into account nutrition properly, yeah, it would pretty much increase overall crop production. And I think this is very also logical. Also, when we get to protein quality, actually, and differences between plant protein and animal protein, which is not the same. So yeah, I just want to highlight that there's a converging lines of evidence that we have that point to the fact that a vegan world would increase crop deaths. And we can see that also an example that pesticide companies support veganism, and they wouldn't do that if a vegan world would decrease their demand for their products, right? It's very logical. We can logically infer that right away. And we have all kinds of studies showing, for example, there's another study that shows that a vegan world, a vegan scenario would increase the percentage of phosphorus burden in the wastewater, right? The contamination. So that means that there would be more phosphate fertilizers being produced. So that means that very likely there's an increase in crop production in a vegan world. We have more. We have market sources that say crop protection is driven by veganism. We have all kinds of different pieces of evidence that point to this conclusion, basically. Here's more evidence. I've gone through the study in one of my last videos. If we actually compare the micronutrient value of different food items, we can see that the land use is increased for some plant-based food items in comparison to some animal-based food items. Okay, the number one spot here is olive oil. Okay, it's way higher than beef, for example, or palm oil uses more land than cheese and poultry, and bananas use more land than cow milk, for example, or rice and pulses and apples use more land than more land than eggs. Okay, and tofu uses more land than eggs or beef liver. Okay, and this is also not just true if we equate for micronutrient value, but also for amino acids. Okay, this comes from the study Essential Amino Acids, Master Regulators of Nutrition and Environmental Footprint. Okay, you can see in this graph about land use that if we equate for the essential amino acids recommended daily allowance, basically the required amount to stay healthy, that we would have to produce way more and use way more land for peas, for example, than for beef. Okay, and for many animal products, chickens, pigs, eggs, milk, we would have to use more land for beans and peas. Okay, chickpeas. Also very close to that is rice and potatoes. Okay, so we would have to use more land, pretty much.
So this is showing land required.
Yeah, land use of different food items, different food groups. But
And the red, what's the red, the yellow, and the green?
This is the red and the yellow is basically for weight in in grams. So, for example, if we have like 100 grams of eggs, how much land does this use versus 100 grams of rice?
Why is the land required for peas so high?
Apparently, because this, I mean, this focused on essential amino acids, recommended daily allowance. So basically, the amount we need to reasonably stay healthy, and this is the kind of amount that we would have to eat and have to use land for if we would have to meet that threshold in comparison to other food items. And that's pretty much what the graph shows there. So not just the crude measurement of what different food items weigh and how much land that uses, but also how much nutrition it actually gives us, and how much therefore we would have to use land for that food item, pretty much.
And when you say nutrition, in this case, we're talking about essential amino acids.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
This is also a similar conclusion that this study comes to carrying capacity of the U.S. agricultural land 10 diet scenario. And again, in the vegan scenario, here is the vegan scenario and here's the baseline scenario. and the brown color says that the brown color illustrates cultivated cropland. Cultivated cropland is the monocropping, the cropland, and that would increase in the vegan scenario compared to the baseline or compared to the omnivore meat-heavy scenarios, okay? And the only land use that would be decreased would be grazing land or perennial cropland, which, again, has barely any pesticides on it, so barely any crop deaths occur on these types of lands, okay? So the type of land that would cause the most crop deaths would increase in a vegan scenario, okay? And most animals on this planet that are actually directly killed by human beings are killed by pesticides, okay? Invertebrates killed by agricultural pesticides greatly exceed all other groups of farmed and wild animals killed by humans. Okay, you can see it in this graph.
Yeah, that's a good graph right there.
Yeah, and this comes from animal charity evaluators. So this is actually a animal rights organization. So this is not some pro-meat propaganda, this is actually their source pretty much, and it shows the truth actually.
Right. Yeah, here's the farmed vertebrates. So there's all your cattle and sheep and chickens and etc. And then just the invertebrates killed by the agricultural pesticides. And that doesn't count all of the elephants that are killed for crops, or the deer that are killed for crops, or the raccoons that are killed for crops, or the possums that are killed for the crops, or the field mice and the moles and the voles and the snails and the worms and well, I guess the snails and the worms might be included in there, but no vertebrates that are killed by agricultural pesticides or other lethal crop protection measures are included in this graph.
Yeah. Even this graph actually severely underestimates the amount of crop deaths. Yes. To be fair, we also have to see that some of these invertebrates are also killed for crops that are grown for animals, but this is only a tiny fraction compared to the crops that are grown for the humans, and humans includes vegans. So, and vegans eat more crops than any other group of diet. So
yeah, and vegans are not happy just being vegan. They want to force, by violence if necessary, everyone to be a vegan. So this excuse that they try to use that, hey, we're only 1% of the population, is not a truthful argument, because they do want the government to start harming people who do not agree to be a member of the vegan religion.
yeah, exactly. This whole argument about, oh, we are just 1 or 2% of the population is the most low IQ argument that I've ever heard, because you want everyone to be vegan. So why are you saying this?
Yeah, exactly.